technical difficulties over here.
Always this new technology that comes out, and then like at the last minute you're trying to figure out what, like some extra option, and it doesn't work, and it's like, yo, the whole world's gonna end.
Indeed, the whole world ends. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Angel R Talk. On this episode of Not Just NYC, I am joined by my good friend Gibran Malik. This guy wears many hats. He is a Muslim American Pakistani rapper. Really good, actually. I've listened to his music. I'm a big fan. He's an actor. He's a music producer, an engineer. He's an entrepreneur, a landlord, an author, and he also has an app out there called Artists Connect app. We're going to have a great conversation. Some people think that ISIS is gone. The president would have you believe that ISIS is gone, but they're not gone. We're going to talk about that topic and more.
We are NYC Talking.
The city of New York, Boricua from the Bronx. 'Cause I know that's what you wouldn't like. To always hear me on the radio like every night. I know you never wanna see me in a better light. You rather see me on your TV screaming suicide. Yeah, that's what you would like. I know that's what you.
Without further ado, allow me to introduce King Sage.
Hey, what's up, man?
I wanted to bring you on because we've spoken about this many times before. You and I have sat, we've talked for hours, right? I have never had a problem with Muslims.
Yeah.
When you have a group like ISIS, right? These guys are out there, and I mean, we'll go to the situation that happened with James Foley. This man was murdered by, as far as I understood, it was a British rapper. So a British rapper, was the one who went over there and joined these radicals and killed this guy. So that just makes you think like anybody can do it. This applies, to anything though, right? Somebody gets killed and they say, oh my God, he was such a nice neighbor. He was so quiet. I guess it's not something that just applies to any one group. Naturally, they're going to get much more of the spotlight, these terrorists doing these things. And it's going to put people in general on high alert. You know? And I've never, like I said, I've never had any problems with Muslims. This is me. This is my own personal view, and I've been attacked for it, and that's fine. Everybody's going to have their own views. However, after seeing something like that, it makes me nervous. It makes me suspicious. It makes me, it makes me worried. You don't know who's who. As a Muslim American yourself, like how do you feel? How does this make you feel?
I never heard of this phenomenon. Now, of course, I know from Muslim history that there was a caliphate, hundreds of years ago. Actually, the last official caliphate was the Ottoman Empire, which was ended on World War I. But that was the last time that there was a unified monarch, like how the Vatican is, the monarch for all Catholics. The Vatican would be the equivalent of what the caliphate was supposed to be, minus all the bloodshed and torture. It's not supposed to be like that. There were the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, where everybody was killing everybody. But we, as a people, I'm talking about as human beings, we've advanced from that era and we survived it. This radical group is like it's like a fantasy. It's like some twisted, nasty, evil fantasy that has a lot of appeal for like rebellious teenagers and people in their early 20s that have this kind of idea that they want to be part of something, and maybe they feel ostracized by American or British society, and they want to go and do this. Now, I've never heard in any mosque here, I'm talking about me, myself, I'm not saying it's not happening, of course it's happening, but here in New York, they never spoke about it. Even up until this new mosque that I go to here in Queens, I've been going there for a couple of years, every single Friday, all they talk about is good deeds and doing the right thing, trying to get into heaven, to have good manners. That's the best thing you can do, all this stuff. Never nothing political, nothing, anything like this. As a matter of fact, the only political thing I've ever heard was when the whole thing was happening in Gaza, when that whole thing went down. They only did one speech on one of the Fridays that they said that if you want to help the Muslim people, become better Muslims, have better character, smile to your neighbors, have better deeds, and then maybe God will turn the situation around and help us out. And stop blaming Israel, stop blaming the Jewish people for all your problems. I swear to God, I'm not lying to you. This was the speech. And that was the only thing that they ever spoke about when it came to Gaza. So looking at that and then looking at what I see on TV, it bothers me too. Because now people are going to start looking at me thinking that, well, I mean, it could be anybody. A terrorist can be anybody. And it's true. Anybody can, go home and go online and just become radicalized. And it sucks. And I don't know what to do about it. I mean, as a Muslim, I'm worried about it as much, if not even more, than anyone else, because of the fact that it's not just my safety that's in question for speaking out as a Muslim that doesn't believe in such things, but also who's going to trust me from the other side. I'm an American. I'm proud to be an American, and I'm proud to be Muslim. But now who's going to be my friend? I mean, I'm being ostracized from both sides, and I have no way out. Like, who's gonna look at me and be like, nah, he's a good guy? I mean, this is making it, it's making it bad. I mean, it reminds me of, it's similar to like how,
situation.
Yeah, like in World War II, when they made the internment camps for the Japanese in America because they didn't know who to trust, even the moderates. I mean,
right.
It's now you look back and, any politician would say that was a dark time in our history, but there's many Japanese that are probably still traumatized by it from that generation that feel like they were ostracized from their country. I mean, it's a tough situation. It's not easy.
I consider myself a very reasonable individual. I believe that, there is bad and there is good in every group. You have guys like these extremists. You're conquered. The law will be implemented. And now I don't know how true this is, but you will not be forced to become Muslim, but you will then have to pay the taxes and whatever else the Sharia law indicates. But the belief is that the law will be implemented worldwide, and that's the belief. That's a pretty extreme view, wouldn't you agree? I mean,
of course it is. It's a crusader point of view. I mean, back in the Crusades, the mentality was, at least even for Christians, the Templar Knights and the church used to force people to convert or die. As a matter of fact, there was no tax or anything like that. In the Spanish Inquisition, hundreds of thousands of Jewish people were I can't even get into what kind of torture and what kind of things that they went through. And all they had to do was convert to Christianity to be saved, but they wouldn't do it because, they don't want to abandon their culture and their beliefs. So this crusader mindset is indicative of interpreting religion as the end-all, be-it-all. And some people argue that they say, well, Islam is like that, as it's the text in the Quran says all that. And that's all misinterpreted. It can be misinterpreted so many different ways, just like any text can be misinterpreted and taken to be, something that you have to do right now, as opposed to something that was in history that happened, 1,000 years ago plus. So these people, they have a language and a mindset that is very, their interpretation of Islam is so off and so rugged and they're so fixated on their understanding of what they want it to be that there's no, and I have to say this, there's no negotiating with these people. Either they change the way they understand religion and life, or these people are always going to be a problem and they have to get removed. And I mean, the people that are fighting against us, obviously we have to fight back and destroy and get rid of. But really to fix the problem from happening again, or at least reducing it down to a manageable size, meaning like, you have Westboro Baptist Church. I mean, what would you think? If they were in charge of America, there wouldn't be any gay marriage. I don't even know what would happen to gay people. I don't even know what would happen to people that were different or non-Christian if the Westboro Baptist Church was in charge. But they'll never get to that point, thank God, because in America, we're knowledgeable and we're educated to the point where people like that will never be able to grow in size. You know what I mean? People are much more educated and they know that something like that is like ridiculous.
Right.
But, people like Anjum Chowdhury and the like, they're growing because of the fact that Muslims themselves have never, it's been like a closed source. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Protestant Reformation and stuff, but like, when the church, before the Bible was ever printed, there was only one way to understand God, and it was through the church and their interpretation of the Bible. And it wasn't until the Bible was printed that people themselves started to read it themselves and say, well, listen, it doesn't say that, it doesn't say this, and it doesn't mean this, and it doesn't mean that. And then the official church will be like, you don't know what you're talking about. We know the Bible, we know God, and da-da-da-da. And then you have the split. So in a similar fashion, not exactly the same, but in a similar fashion, Muslims themselves didn't have access to their own religion as far as understanding. They didn't know what to do with people like this because they seem more religious than we are. But now that we are able to check the history and check the context and check the meanings behind the verses and things of that nature, now we're starting to see, as moderate Muslims and as Muslims that are looking for the real reasons behind the certain sayings in our religion and stuff like that, the real points and the real history behind it, we're starting to see the real picture, and it's completely different than people like Anjum Chowdhury and the like, and what they interpret Islam to be. And I would say that they're as much of a threat to Islam as they are to anyone. You know what I'm saying? And as Muslims, we should be.
They don't just kill Americans, right? I watched a Vice documentary, and when they captured their enemy soldiers, I heard a guy say, "Oh, we're going to cut your head off with a knife." And these were other Muslims that they captured. Exactly. So you're correct in saying that these particular extremists they will not just hurt Americans or any other Western folks. They will kill Muslims. They will kill whoever is not following their rules. The documentary was, I watched this and it was frightening. The guy stopped a couple in the street. He called the man over. He said, "Is that your wife?" "Yes." "Have her change the fabric of her veil. Have her change this because it doesn't fit the rules." I mean, it's a very tight leash. And if you know, this is what the gentleman said. Call him a gentleman. I use the term loosely. This is what the guy said. He said, "We ask them nicely. We tell them to obey. If they don't obey, we force them. This is the way it is. We tell them nicely, and if they don't obey, we force them."
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you said. It's not just a threat to us or.
Yeah. Nah. It has to be stopped. It has to be stopped. And I mean, it's our policies as well. I'm not saying it creates it. It doesn't create it. It was there, but it gives these people the ability to get to this size. You know what I mean? I mean, we funded Al Qaeda, in the 80s to fight against communism, to fight back against Russia. We didn't get directly involved, but we indirectly got involved. And then the blowback from that was Al Qaeda. Now, Al Qaeda was going to exist no matter what because they think like that. There's so many radical groups around the world, but we interfere without thinking things through sometimes. And I think we have to change our policies because now we finance another radical group in Syria, or at least we want them to win, a rebel group, and then we come to find out that was actually ISIS. But we didn't know that when we wanted them to liberate Syria from Assad and to fight back and to create some sort of hope for the rebels, the people that were fighting back. And the same thing with Egypt. We wanted the Muslim Brotherhood to win, and then once they came into power and we saw that they weren't willing to listen, we kind of didn't want them there, and now we have someone who will listen. So we need to, as a superpower, we have a lot of responsibility, and we have to deal with the world because the world wants to deal with us, but we have to be very careful in how we deal with individuals, and we need to think things through more often so that we don't create any blowback or any situations where some of these small groups that appear to be acting like they're fighting for justice and fighting for the people are not really the people that we're going to end up having to fight later on. You know what I mean?
Right. I personally have always equated governments and this type of thing to the streets. I grew up in the hood, right? Mm-hmm. And in the hood we got what we call street politics. You have, I mean, and it applies all across the scale. It applies even in something as simple as a little clique of friends, like who you back.
Exactly.
Who you side with in a debate. Maybe you and your homeboys are having an argument and, one of your boys decides to pull away from the group and now he starts his own group and all the knowledge you guys shared together, he uses it against you. So it can happen in anything, but it's just, on such a greater scale when it has to do with governments.
Exactly.
As Americans, you, myself, all of us, we don't want to see people getting slaughtered. We see someone getting slaughtered and we say, hold up, we have to do something to help. Unfortunately, sometimes we get involved, we help someone, but those guys turn out to be even worse. So it's like I don't know what to do in this scenario. I mean, in this type of scenario on a global scale, do we say, let's just focus on America and everybody else can fend for themselves. Just the strong survive. I don't know what the right approach is to take. But I mean, this type of scenario now where we have these guys out there and they're growing, right? We've spoken about this in the past. If you have a kid whose parents were unintentionally killed by an American attack, say we're fighting the enemy, we drop a bomb and we leave a child orphaned. As far as that kid is concerned, we just killed his parents, right? Our bomb killed his parents. And this man here is telling him those guys are evil. Those guys are evil. And that kid is going to grow up and he's going to be an extremist, right? We've spoken about this. This is not everybody, but a lot of people don't have Twitter, Facebook, all these things to get different points of views, right? You're only going to get what you get. And brainwashing is a very powerful thing. If you tell someone something from a very young age, they're going to believe it, especially when they have such material proof like, this bomb killed your parents. Now, maybe we were trying to attack a senior leader who has killed hundreds and hundreds of Muslims and Americans. It wasn't intentional, but you don't know that, right? I mean, you're not going to watch the news report where we say we got this Al-Qaeda leader. The kid is not going to hear this. He's going to hear what his radical, friends or whatever tell him.
Exactly.
And this is what he's going to grow up with.
Yeah, when I went to the West Bank, I have a lot of Jewish friends and Christian friends here in New York, so I'm extremely multicultural, multifaceted. I like to learn everything about everyone's culture, and I'm very inquisitive. So I went over there as an American citizen, and I had the ability to visit, both sides of the conflict and talk to people from both sides. And it was interesting because I remember the Palestinian people that I spoke to, they really didn't know anything about America. Or at least they didn't know what the basic understanding of America was. They asked me, they were like, "Oh, you're Muslim?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And he was like, "Yeah, that's so good," or whatever. And then he's like, "But how do you pray there?" And I was like, "What do you mean, how do I pray there?" And he's like, don't they try to if they see you praying on the street or somewhere, they might try to bother you or oppress you or something. I was like, "Nah." I was like, "There's no way. That doesn't happen at all. It's a free country." And then he's like, "Okay." And this was more than one guy. They were in shock. And then I told them "Yeah, I have Christian friends and I even have Jewish friends." They were like, "You have Jewish friends?" And what shocked me the most was that they weren't angry. They were more in a state of disbelief. They didn't know how that was possible. And that's when it hit me. I was like, these people don't know what a free society really is. They've never really been taught how this works. So how can you make someone come to peace with anyone that doesn't understand the concept? You know what I mean? They don't understand what that's going to be like. They don't know how that works, where you live together with people from different cultures and different societies in peace, and you interact with each other and you can learn from each other. But like you said, they know somebody, a cousin, an uncle, somebody who an IDF soldier either shot or abused, and and they hear that and they blow up the story, and then they tell them that as a kid, and then what do you expect them to think? I mean, a child is like a sponge. They just absorb whatever you tell them, and then they grow up and they have this psychological predisposition where they feel as if I can never really be friends with you. How do I do that? I can't work. And I saw that this was really the root cause of the continuing problem in the area. You know what I mean? So it's tough. I started an organization where Muslims, Jews, and Christians that they're all for peace and interpreting religion and spirituality in a positive way, appreciating each other's cultures and different ways of living in a positive light, and living together and making that an example for anybody who's religious, that we're all we all have our cultures and we have our histories and stuff, and we all need to interpret them in a positive way. I mean, Christianity came over that hurdle, Judaism came over that hurdle a long time ago, and Muslims need to come over that hurdle. And they just haven't addressed the crazy uncle in the room. And the crazy uncle represents ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the like. And ignoring the problem only causes it to grow even more. You know what I mean? And we should have isolated it. It's like a cancer that kind of grew out of control, and it just needs to be stopped. It needs to be stopped by, giving Muslims that don't know what to do insight on how to live as a Muslim, as an educated Muslim, as a peaceful Muslim, and making that a reality. You know what I mean? So that they can say, okay, well, I can do this. This is how I can be. This is the kind of Muslim I want to be. Instead of leaving them with the alternative, which is ISIS and the like and things like that, where they think that, well, how am I going to be a Muslim if I'm not like them? I mean, they're the best looking Muslims. They do everything that they say they claim that this is what Islam is all about. If we can't give a person an alternative, I mean, that's what the Boys and Girls Club was, to give young people an alternative. Instead of joining a gang, which is negative, join a positive type of gang, which is the Boys and Girls Club. And this will address the feeling of wanting to be a part of something and wanting to feel like you're part of an institution and you're with other people that are your age and things like that. That's the psychological issue. And Muslims haven't created the grounds for Muslims that don't know what to do the ability to join something that's a positive version of their interpretation rather than the negative, crazy version of the interpretation that's grown out of control. And that's what I'm trying to do with my organization. It's called The Common Accord. I mean, I just started it, and I have a few friends here in New York, and we're trying to take it to the next level. And if you go on Facebook, you can see it. It's facebook.com/The Common Accord. You'll see a small brown symbol with an Arabic word, which means unity or alike or together, which is all about explaining each other's cultures and understanding the differences and the connections and giving the grounds for us to live together peacefully and respect and appreciate each other. And that's what we're trying to do.
That sounds great. I'll definitely do my part to share it out and spread the word. We're about running out of time here. But I wanted to thank you for coming on the show. You want to let the folks know how they can find you if anybody wants to connect with you, further talk about this topic. We know you're very social. So please let everybody know how they can find King Sage.
Go to my YouTube channel, check out some of my videos under my regular my name Gibran Malik, which is my regular name. King Sage is more my alias. Gibran Malik, that's Gibran. Last name Malik. Just search that up and check out my videos that are part of The Common Accord. And again, facebook.com/The Common Accord. Or you can add me as a friend on my regular personal page, Gibran Malik. You'll see a picture of me with the orange color Instagram filter to try to look a little cooler than I actually am. You could get
know about those filters, man. No filter hashtag.
Yeah, you could get me in any of those on those markers. So
www.nyctalking.com. Please like NYC Talking on Facebook. Please follow Angel R Talk on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for listening.